Our subject in this tutorial is converting French cuffs into barrel cuffs. But before you can make a decision on it, you need to know a couple of things. First of all, we may ask you what the length of your French cuff is. And the length will be, as you see here, in this particular case it's 10 3/8. The length is always the part that goes around your wrist, completely around. And so this is the length. The width will be, as you see here, from top to bottom before it's folded into the French cuff position. Now also, we may ask you, well, what's the finished French cuff width? The only way you can tell that is by superimposing the holes on top of each other. And when you do that, crease them with your fingers like you see here and measure the finished cuff. Let me show you here exactly so you can get a real good idea of what, and I'll come to the bottom so you can see it from the fold to the finished. In this particular case it's 2 7/8. There's always a little bit of extra space below, and that covers the stitching on the sleeve. Your good brands will always have anywhere from 1/4 to 3/8. In this particular case it looks like 1/8. That might have been due to shrinkage, most likely. Again, I want to bring in a barrel cuff. Since you're converting to a barrel cuff, in this particular case the length again will be from left to right. In this particular case, this one here is 11 3/8, which in this particular case was very long for this customer. The reason you need to know the length is because we ask you, well, what do you want the finished length to be? If you say 10, then we'll come over 10 and we'll make our new length. Obviously you're having new barrels made, or conversion. Normally in a conversion we do not reduce the length on the French cuff. So for example, if you said you wanted this one to be 9 inches, we can't do it. And the reason being is because we have the holes, and the holes are already set. You have 2 holes and we can't bring it in. So the length on the French cuff that's going to be converted is going to be as it is. So now if you're making brand new ones you can stipulate any length, but when you're conversion you can only work with the length that is existing. So in this particular case we can't make it a length smaller, only in a brand new one. Now why is this essential? Because if this cuff now, for example, you're sleeving it, let's say you bought a brand new shirt and originally it was a 34 inch, but it's shrunk 1/2 inch. And so now you have 33.5, that's including the French cuff. At this point here, we can make this cuff wider when we convert it. So if this was 2 7/8, we would add another 1/2 inch to the width of this. Now, the other concern is that what happens in this case is that normally when you do that, the buttonhole becomes unbalanced. So for example, on this one here, if we superimpose and we make this one, let's say we make it 2.5 inches. I'm going to just do so you can see what I'm doing to make sense for you. This is going to be the finished width, and I'm just going to visually draw it here. So that's going to be the cut, and then we're going to add our seam allowances onto that. So you can see that the hole, or the buttonhole, is pretty well in the middle. So you can see the finished is between my 2 fingers here, and the buttonhole is in the middle, but not in all cases. So for example, in the one regular French cuff, let's say that I make this one 3 inches. I'm going to reconvert to 3 inches. So I'm going to mark off 3 inches. And let me give you a better view here. So I'm going to make it 3 inches, and I'm going to mark it as if I was going to. So I'm going to have 3 inches. And I'm going to add my seam allowances to it. Now, seam allowances won't mean anything to you, but my finished measurement at this point is here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it on down, and I'm going to show you what's happened. And you can see that my buttonhole, and I'm going to mark it with a pen so you can see where the buttonhole is at. And you can see that the buttonhole now is toward the bottom. It's not balanced. So what I recommend, and you can do this at home, you can figure out whether it looks balanced or not. We'll add another buttonhole, we'll make it a 2 buttonhole. And this will make it balanced because it won't look right with just 1 button on it. If the width of the French cuff is already where it should be, we have no problem. So, but if it isn't, in this case here, we need another button. And the reason I'm saying is because what we've done in this particular, we have the other side of the sleeve, and we added another buttonhole, and you can see that it's balanced. It's 2 button now, but it's perfect. And at this point, again, I'll state that if you want to make it a little wider, we can make it a little wider so that it'll give you extra sleeve length. So I hope this answers some of your questions. First of all, the problem, a lot of questions we asked you is, can you make it a angle cut, or can you make it a square? We can't really, because the buttonholes were already set. And for us to try to take the thread out of the buttonholes, they never line up in most cases. Now, we've been lucky a few times, but normally they don't line up. So I'm going to say that in 99.99% of the time, we won't mess with making it an angle or a square. You'll have to be stuck with the style of roundness or square, whatever it may be. But the only thing that you can change is the width to give you a little bit more sleeve length. So those are things to consider. So those are the 2 questions that we'll ask you. What is the length, and what is the width of the present French cuff? And what is the width of the barrel cuff that you want when this is all done? So again, the width and the length. Now, those submitting regular cuffs at this point here, we can normally cut one side and make them smaller, but not in the French cuffs.